Okay, so imagine this. It's Pirates Week in the Cayman Islands. You've got thousands of people packed onto the Georgetown waterfront, all staring out over Hogstye Bay, just waiting for the spectacular drone show finale.
The highlight of the whole week.
Exactly. The clock hits launch time, and nothing. Just silence. Then after this, frantic delay, the organizers have to get on and announce the unthinkable. Their whole fleet of super sophisticated drones, they just couldn't lift more than 3 feet off the ground.
It really does sound like something out of a movie,
Mm-hmm.
but it was 100% real. And the problem wasn't the weather or, some glitch they could fix with a reboot. The official word was severe signal interference.
Wow.
It's a perfect and honestly a very bizarre example of the core problem facing this whole booming drone market. How do you deal with threats, whether they're known, hostile, or, like in this case, just completely unexpected electronic chaos?
And that's exactly why this is such a fascinating deep dive for us. Our mission today is to really analyze CUAS, that's Counter Unmanned Aerial Systems
The
technology.
tools of the trade.
Right. These are the advanced systems built to detect, to classify, and then to mitigate drone threats. We want to see how these state-of-the-art defenses stack up against a total mystery, like the one that shut down that show.
Yeah, so we're going to start by picking apart that signal mystery, and then we'll dive straight into the 10 major types of monitoring gear and countermeasures that are available today. We'll look at what actually works and what might just create more problems.
Okay, so let's get into that mystery then. So this all went down on a Saturday evening. The operators, they were working like crazy, trying system resets, frequency checks, but the drones were just totally grounded.
And what makes it so weird, as you said, is that 3 previous shows had gone off without a hitch. Same location, same setup, so something had changed.
And when officials look around for what's new, what's different, their eyes land on a very large, very obvious suspect.
The U.S. Coast Guard cutter Resolute. It had been moored right at the dock in Hogstye Bay, extremely close to the drone launch point, for a few days. I mean, if you've got a powerful military vessel suddenly sitting next to your civilian drone show, that's immediately suspect number 1 for any kind of signal problem.
I can't even imagine the pressure those event officials were under. They tried to talk to the crew, but the sources say the ship just didn't have enough staff on duty to move it, not even to reposition it.
So they had to wait. The verdict came the next morning, and it completely rules out the ship. The ministry confirmed the Resolute is an older cutter. It does not have the kind of high-powered radar or, specialized electronic gear that could cause that specific type of severe interference.
So the biggest, most obvious suspect is cleared, and the source of the disruption is still totally unknown. That's a massive security gap right there.
It is. And meanwhile, the ship's presence was causing a whole other set of problems completely unrelated to the drones.
The collateral damage.
Exactly, the collateral damage. Because of where the cutter was parked, it blocked access at the port. A local grocery store manager couldn't even get their cargo offloaded from a barge. It's just this chain reaction of disruption.
And then there's the public frustration. The announcement was so delayed, it didn't even hit social media until 8 p.m.
Right, and the organizers were genuinely troubleshooting right up to the last second. They were hoping to save the show. And once they finally called it, the sources mentioned that the slow upload speeds along the waterfront just delayed them getting the word out.
So you have a complex, multi-million-dollar tech display just neutralized by a ghost signal, an invisible, untraceable force.
Which brings us right to the main challenge. If a random unknown signal can cause that much chaos, how do professionals deal with known, potentially malicious threats?
That is the perfect segue into our first phase here, drone monitoring and detection. So we're talking about the CUAS tech that's built just to find, identify, and track these things.
Right. And fundamentally, this equipment is either passive, so it's just listening or looking, or it's active, where it's actually emitting a signal like a radar and then analyzing what comes back.
And these systems, they seem to break down into 4 basic functions, right? You need detection, just knowing something's out there.
Yep.
Then classification or identification. Is it a drone or is it a bird? Then locating and tracking so you know where it's going. And finally, alerting the operator.
And this is where it gets really sophisticated. Some of these systems go way beyond just detection. They can actually identify the drones or even the controller's digital fingerprint, something like a unique MSE address.
Which would be invaluable for prosecution later.
Invaluable for forensics, exactly.
So let's dive into the first of the 4 big detection types, starting with the heaviest hitter, radar. But I have to ask, radar is old tech. doesn't it have trouble with tiny, slow-moving things like a commercial quadcopter?
That is the crucial difference. We're not talking about your standard air traffic control radar that's designed to ignore small objects. Specialist CUAS radar is built for this exact mission. And the pros are obvious. Get long range, constant all-weather tracking, and incredibly accurate localization.
But what's the secret ingredient that lets it see a drone in fog or complete darkness?
It's often a feature called microdoppler. Systems that use this, like one called IRAS, they don't just see the drone as one moving dot. They can actually detect the speed differences within that object.
Wait. You're telling me the radar is literally picking up the unique signature of the spinning propeller blades?
That's it, exactly. It's sensing the rotation of the rotors. That's how it can tell the difference between a drone and, say, a bird with its smooth wing movement. It cuts down false alarms dramatically.
That is highly specific. What are the downsides?
Well, the range still depends on the drone's size, and you do need a transmission license to operate, which can be a big regulatory hurdle.
Okay, next up is the more passive method. Radio frequency, or RF, analyzers.
These are the quiet ones. They just sit there and passively receive the radio waves going between a drone and its controller. The big advantage here is cost and ease of use. They're low cost, and since they're passive, you don't need an expensive transmission license.
And they seem perfect for finding those MP addresses you mentioned, and I guess if you use a few of them together, you can triangulate the position of the drone and the pilot.
You can, but here's the catch. Their range is short, and they're completely blind to autonomous drones.
Because there's no signal to the controller?
No signal to detect. They also struggle in crowded RF areas, like a city, and maybe the biggest problem is they require constant, expensive library updates to recognize all the new drone protocols. It's a constant arms race just to stay up to date.
Speaking of spotting things, let's talk about optical sensors, which are really just, very smart cameras.
Yeah, they collect light-visible infrared thermal, and they lean heavily on AI to help track things day and night. The main selling point is pretty clear. You get forensic evidence, you have actual pictures of the drone, its payload, everything you need for prosecution.
But I'm guessing as a standalone detection tool, they have some pretty major limits.
Oh, absolutely. They have notoriously high false alarm rates. If it flies, it can set them off. And at the end of the day, you can't beat physics. They just don't perform well in the dark or in fog.
Our fourth detection type sounds almost too simple. Acoustic sensors. Microphones.
It is a simple concept. They use microphone arrays to detect the drone's unique sound signature and figure out its direction. If you use a few arrays, you can get a rough triangulation.
Why bother with a microphone when you have sophisticated radar?
They're passive, they're mobile, and they have one huge advantage over RS analyzers. They detect all drones nearby, even the autonomous ones, because they all make noise. They're great gap fillers for areas where a camera or radar might not have a clear line of sight.
But I assume that all falls apart if you're near a highway or a construction site.
Precisely. The range is very short, maybe 300 to 500 meters max, and they're basically useless in a noisy urban environment.
Okay, so we've covered the four main ways to see the threat. That brings us to the second, much more aggressive phase, countermeasures. We're moving from detection to actually stopping these things.
Right. And mitigation really falls into three buckets. You can physically destroy the drone, you can neutralize it electronically, or, in a perfect world, you take control of it and land it safely.
Before we even list the 6 methods, we have to stop and stress the regulatory side of this. All this tech is real, it's available, but current rules in most countries.
Well, they forbid civilians from using most of these countermeasures.
That is absolutely the key takeaway here. The military and law enforcement can use them, but generally a private company protecting a stadium or an airport cannot. The risk of collateral damage is just too high.
What kind of damage? Well, if you jam a signal, you could cause a drone to crash into a crowd. Or you could accidentally interfere with air traffic control, police radios, even ambulance communications. The law is really struggling to keep up with the tech.
That makes perfect sense. The potential for chaos is enormous. So let's start with the most common electronic defense. RF jammers.
A jammer just transmits high-powered RF energy at the drone to overwhelm the controller's signal. The goal is just to break that link.
And what happens when you break the link?
That's the problem. It leads to one of 4 very unpredictable outcomes. The drone might land itself. It might try to return to its home point, which could be the very place you're trying to protect.
Oh, wow.
It could just fall out of the sky, or it could fly off completely randomly.
That unpredictability is a huge downside. And I assume they're short range and can interfere with other signals, too.
They do. Next up, you have GPS spoofers. This is a bit more elegant. It sends a false GPS signal to the drone, tricking it into thinking it's somewhere else.
This sounds like the ideal solution because you could just guide the drone to a safe landing zone.
That's the goal. But this is pretty much limited to military use on the battlefield. The risk is just too high in a civilian area. If you start messing with GPS signals, you could disrupt everything from mapping apps to, critical navigation for other vehicles.
Now for the really big guns. The stuff that sounds like it's out of a sci-fi movie, high-power microwave or HPM devices.
These generate an electromagnetic pulse, an EMP, and focus it with an antenna. The pulse basically fries the drone's internal electronics.
An instant knockout.
Yeah.
But the trade-offs must be catastrophic for civilian use, right?
They are severe. The high cost is one thing, but the risk of unintentionally destroying other electronics nearby is massive. And unlike a controlled landing, an HPM hit means the drone just switches off instantly and falls, a huge hazard for anything below.
Okay, let's switch from electronics to kinetics, the old-school reliability of NECs and net guns.
This is just mechanical simplicity. You stop the propellers from spinning. You can do it with ground-launched cannons, net guns fired from another drone, or even a friendly drone that flies up and captures the rogue one in a net.
The big pro here has to be the physical evidence, right? You actually capture the device. Great for forensics.
Absolutely. And nets deployed by other drones have a pretty low risk of collateral damage. The downsides are that the ground-launched ones have a very short range, and drone-mounted net guns can struggle against a fast, evasive target because of inertia.
Then we get to probably the most extreme option, high-energy lasers.
This is really cutting-edge stuff. It's a high-powered beam of light that physically burns through the drone's structure or its electronics. It's pitched as this long-range, low-cost-per-kill solution since you're not firing physical ammo.
Sounds incredibly efficient. Why isn't this everywhere?
Well, the systems are huge. They're mostly experimental, and the safety hazard is just off the charts. The risk of collateral damage, especially to the eyes of anyone on the ground, or even worse, to another aircraft, is just too high for widespread deployment right now.
Okay, finally, let's talk about the most sophisticated, non-destructive option, cyber takeover systems.
This is really the holy grail. These systems passively detect the drone's transmissions, use AI to identify its serial number, find the pilot's position, and then the operator can send a signal to hack it and take full control.
So no debris, no jamming, just total control. It's precise, low risk, and it automatically captures all the forensic data you'd need. Does it work on those autonomous drones too?
It can, yes, against both piloted and autonomous systems. But it has a massive Achilles heel. It works by recognizing commercially available models. So it requires a perfectly up-to-the-minute library of commercial drones. It's much less effective against homemade drones or state-developed ones using protocols it doesn't recognize.
It is crystal clear after walking through all 10 of those that CUAS is not a single tool. It's an ecosystem. There's no silver bullet.
Not at all. The best defense is always a mix, a layered approach based on the specific threat you're facing. And that's where the command and control, or C2 software, becomes the most critical piece of the puzzle.
Because it has to tie everything together.
Everything, all that data from the microdoppler radar, the acoustic sensors, the RF analyzers, it all has to be collected, processed, and shown to a human operator in a way that's actually useful and, not overwhelming.
So the C2 system needs to be sensor agnostic, meaning it can talk to any brand of radar, any camera, and it needs functions like data fusion and decision support, all in real time.
Yeah, we're even seeing industry standards like Sapient being developed just to make sure all this different gear can actually talk to each other seamlessly.
So we've really dissected the incredible complexity of modern CUAS defense today. We've seen how specialists use things like microdoppler radar to tell the difference between a bird and a rotor blade, and how cyber systems rely on these constantly updated libraries.
It's a very advanced field.
And yet, we started this whole deep dive with an event that was totally paralyzed by something so simple, so untraceable, that a U.S. Coast Guard cutter was instantly ruled out as the source.
Right. We've shown you the state-of-the-art defense tech, but also how vulnerable even well-planned events can be to just simple, unknown interference.
Which leaves you with a final thought to mull over. If that Coast Guard cutter was ruled out, and the disruption was still severe enough to ground a whole fleet of sophisticated drones,
what does that imply about the spread of portable, low-signature signal jammers? Devices that are not designed for drone defense, but are still perfectly capable of shutting down major public events, infrastructure, and maybe even critical communications.
the ghost in the machine is still out there. And it's very effective. Something for you to think about next time you hear about a canceled event.
Indeed.
Until the next